Well, first of all, we have to answer the question, is unconditional love even possible? You can say that like God loves us unconditionally. Even in like established religions, God expects you to do this and that, and this is the kind of person God expects you to become, right? In order to be deserving of God's love. So, well, I'm not particularly religious, and I am not using this as a criticism. I'm just using that as a reference, right? So what do we mean by unconditional love? So let me put it this way. When people say that they want to give you unconditional love, they're not necessarily lying to you, right? They actually may be genuinely wishing or wanting to love you unconditionally. But by saying unconditional, we are not really talking about unconditional in the absolute sense. When someone tells you that I love you unconditionally, it means this person is willing to make a lot of compromises or adjustment in order to love you. So we should appreciate that. I really appreciate that you're trying to do that to me. I understand that you're telling me that you're willing to make an effort, you're willing to give, you're willing to sometimes go out of your way in order to love me. So again, like when you're using concepts like this, like I want to love someone unconditionally, you have to first of all realize your own limitations. Like there are certain lines that cannot be crossed, and you have a finite capacity for loving, and within those parameters you can be quote and unquote unconditional, which is fine. It's just actually quite admirable if you want to do that. So let us get into the practicalities of this. So basically what we're talking about here is that you want to give to the maximum of your capacity, to contain this person, to embrace this person. You're willing to accept weaknesses and shortcomings of this person. But unconditional love does not mean rulelessness, does not mean that there is no value that you're upholding, right? So an extreme example is that if someone has done something terrible, like murdering someone, burn down another person's house, and then you say, oh, that is okay, my darling, that's fine, I still love you. If you follow my approach, when someone has done something wrong, we do not automatically switch into judgment and punishment, because that doesn't help much either. What we usually encourage people to do, if think of you trying to love someone in a relatively unconditional manner, or you want to provide a safe holding environment for the person you love, when this person does something wrong, you ask the reason why, not to the person, right? Because that will come across as accusatory, and the person may not even feel comfortable. The person may feel defensive and threatened if you're why did you do that? No, you're actually asking why at the back of your head. Basically, we want you to understand, when someone does something wrong, it's usually because the person has certain needs that he or she would have to address. The way that it turned out to be wrong is that because this person hasn't learned or mastered the right strategy for addressing that need. So therefore, the person will have to do something that is socially unacceptable, or violent or unethical in order to achieve that need. So for us to be helpful, we are not going to be endorsing the wrong strategy, but we can engage with the person by saying, I recognize that you have this need that you want to meet, but what you are choosing as your method is not the most effective, because it may hurt other people. I'll give you an example that actually happened with my son when he was young. he was like collecting this very interesting cartoon objects, including like cards and toys associated with like this the Dragon Ball storyline. And one time, like he was very young and he didn't quite know, and then he picked up something from the shop and wanted to just walk away with it, right? So we sat down with him and basically tell him that, well, we understand that you want this thing badly and you really like it, but like in the future, this is how you get these things. You either pay for it, like you talk to us, your parents, to get us to buy it for you. And you have to also recognize sometimes what you want to obtain immediately is something that you're not always getting. That is the lesson that you have to learn in life, right? And you have to learn that for certain things you may have to work for it. It may take you a while if you do not immediately like grab it and own it. So we turn that experience into a teaching moment. So we are not saying that you're a bad person or you have done something terrible. We are saying that we recognize your needs and your desire. And there are better ways to do it, and I'm willing to support you. So I think, like, if you want to love someone unconditionally, this is probably the kind of attitude that you can adopt by recognizing again the person's need and supporting your partner to build the right strategies to achieve what he or she really needs. So when it comes to ethical decision making, I think people very often refer to one of the many dimensions. And in my opinion, a reductionistic approach, like addressing only one of the dimensions, is usually inadequate. Like, let me tell you this, like the simplest like ethical rules that people follow is that you have like a simple black and white about certain behaviors. Like, say for example, stealing is wrong. Lying is wrong, right? Killing other people is wrong. And then like regardless of like the circumstances under which it happens, this is like a clear right and wrong. And then as we know, everyone almost can think of situations in which a generally wrong behavior can be seen as ethically justifiable, right? We have this like very famous story, Les Miserables, by Hugo, and like people have like seen maybe the movie version of it or the musical version of it or read the original work. It is about this guy stealing a loaf of bread, right, to share it with the poor, and he got hunted down, right, by this detective for decades in his life. So we're asking the question, like, you know, is stealing bread to feed people who are starving, like, ethically defensible, right? Then we have like different answers on it. So if someone is like persecuting, right, vulnerable people, like during the Nazi phase in Europe, in Asia, we have the similar thing. Like, you know, during the Second World War, you have the Japanese like occupying much of Asia, and they have been doing terrible things as well. So you have like someone at your door asking, like, is so and so in this house? If you can save this person's life by lying, would you not do it, right? So first principle is the nature of the act. So killing, stealing, lying is right or wrong. That is like referring to the nature of the act. In this kind of situations, we're also considering the motivation. Why are you doing it? Like, you're not doing this to further your own interests. You're not doing this to protect yourself. You're doing it to protect another person, and you are at that point actually taking a huge risk yourself. So I would see that as like an altruistic act, right? So because the motivation is altruistic, right, it has to be taken into account in an ethical assessment. And then like the other factor I have already mentioned is the consequence. The problem in ethical decisions about consequences is that like consequences are very often unpredictable, Say, for example, you took the risk of like lying and covering your friend, and then like later on it was discovered, right, that you're lying, and then you got yourself killed, you get your friend killed, you may even get your family killed, and then people may say that this is a stupid decision. But just look at like how people respond to this, then you can see the ethical value of this. People usually would not say that you are unethical. People say that you're stupid. Like, so when we're only looking at consequences, it can be a product of like intelligence. It can also be a product of ethical decision making. So very often when we are weighing consequences, we're very much looking at like the kind of estimation, your prediction, your cognitive assessment of the situation, which can be off or accurate. So when we're putting all this together, we understand that ethical decision is not simple. It involves, as I said, like the nature of the act, the intention, the anticipated consequences. And when you do that, right, it also has something to do with your cognitive ability, your emotional capacity to stay calm, right? So it is not just an ethical assessment that we need to perform. It actually involves multiple dimensions. So in my world, you know, like ethical decisions are never simple and straightforward, black and white. It actually involves like way more than that. And I always encourage a more nuanced and multidimensional assessment when it comes to ethical matters.